Hi, this is Brent Haynes with Woodsound Flutes. We're going to talk about the classics today. The classics are flutes which we have created in a streamlined process. We streamline the design of the flutes and we streamline the way that we make the flutes so that we can reduce the cost of the instruments and pass that cost savings on to you. The cost savings that you can realize by purchasing a classic flute can be up to as much as $200. So it's a pretty great way to go when you're looking for an instrument, but the specifics of the design is not what you are really caring about. What you're really caring about is the acoustics of the instrument and the general appearance of the instrument. In that situation, the classics are the perfect flute for what you're looking to do. The first flute that I want to share with you is a student flute. The student flute is actually designed for collegiate level students. These are students that are performing on, they may be using the flute in concert with choirs or with orchestras. In fact, one of my friends, William Holm, who was one of the authors of the duets book with me, used a student flute with the Seattle Women's Choir a year or two ago, and it was great. It was great to see him up there with that mid-A flute, playing with all the women behind him, and pretty amazing thing to see. But he did that on a student flute when he actually had at his disposal other mid-A flutes that he could have used. He just chose a student flute because it was of a newer design, and that newer design had a better sound than the older Woodsound flutes that he had. Just like the student flute sounds better than the older Woodsound flutes, the ones that he had from before 2009, this flute sounds better than the vast majority of instruments that are available on the market today. It's only available in high C, mid A, and mid G. The flute is made out of cambia. The flute body here is cambia. Cambia is a beautiful, rich golden brown wood. It has a wax finish to it. The mouthpiece is made out of a blonde wood. It can be either poplar or cherry, maybe apple, beech. There's a number of different woods that we use that achieve this general look and appearance. And the totem, of course, is made out of the same wood. The instrument is a very simple instrument in its design. It has the mouthpiece, it has the totem, there's no end cap to it, the wax body finish, and that is the instrument. But acoustically, it sounds fantastic. So it gives you an idea of what a Woodsound student flute can sound like. One of the things that I hope that you noticed in that little sound file there was as I played the flute, there were times when I hit the very highest note quite softly and then increased the volume of that high note until it was quite loud and very big sound. Again, on the fundamental note with all the fingers covered, I would hit that note sometimes very softly and yet could bring that note into a great big full sound. When you're making a Native American flute as a flute maker, it's hard to make a flute that plays this fundamental note loud. It's easy to make one that plays a fundamental note soft. Conversely, it's hard to make a flute that plays this octave note soft, and easy to make one that plays the octave note loud. So many native flutes, as you play the flute, you actually blow harder on the instrument as you go up the flute because it gets, that's how you stay at a good sound saturation. With the Woodsound flutes, you're able to play soft and loud from the bottom note to the top note and get the full dynamic range. I hope that helps a little bit as you're making your decision about what instruments you're going to use as you're learning to play the native flute, or perhaps if you're just looking to increase your quiver of flutes. By all means, if you have any questions at all, give us a call. We'd love to talk to you. You're welcome also to send us an email. All of that information is up in the upper right-hand corner of the website. I hope you have a wonderful day. The next flute we're going to talk about is the Woodsounds Cedar Classic. The Cedar Classic is a simple design in that it has a mouthpiece, a totem, and an end cap. No other ornamentations to it. The totem is a simple spirit claw totem. The body of the flute is made out of eastern red cedar. The Cedar Classic is now available in 2 different trim colors. You can order it in light trim wood. This one is a light trim flute with the blonde wood for the mouthpiece, totem, and end cap. And you can also get it in a dark trim, which is would have a dark mouthpiece, totem, and end cap. Pictures of an example of a dark trimmed flute are up in the upper pictures above this video, and you can get an idea of what that would look like. The exact woods that we will use for those trims will depend on what we have available at the time. We're trying in the Woodsounds shop to go more green and trying to utilize all of the woods that we have in the shop instead of using those woods for fires or for throwing the woods away, as often would happen when we would get little small scraps of wood that we just couldn't use for anything else but trim, and we didn't have a specific flute designed for that trim to be used up with. I'm very excited about this new way of making the Cedar Classics because it allows us to be more sustainable in how we are creating our instruments. We're using all of the woods that we possibly can to create the instruments, to bring our clients a more sustainable instrument. So not only can they enjoy their flutes, but their children and their grandchildren, their great-grandchildren can hopefully get Woodsound flutes down the road. So, this is the Cedar Classic. It sounds fantastic. It's got a very warm sound. Compared to the student flute, it's much fuller, richer, a lot more volume to the instrument. And I think that you will enjoy this quite a bit. As you can tell, very, very rich sound, very warm, very comforting, feels like a great big hug, and just a perfect instrument to play with a fireplace going in the evening. You're sitting on your couch with your loved ones and playing the instrument, making beautiful sounds and creating some music there in a nice, beautiful environment. The next flute that we're going to talk about is the Taos Old Style. The Taos Old Style is a flute that I created in cooperation with Robert Mirabal. Robert Mirabal and I worked on this flute because he was involved in a mini-series about Georgia O'Keeffe. And Georgia O'Keeffe was a famous artist of New Mexico. She did all sorts of work with pastels and really some incredible work. You definitely want to check it out. But Robert was a flute player from the Taos Pueblo in the movie. Imagine that. And in the movie, he wanted to have a flute that really looked like one of the old Taos Pueblo flutes. And frankly, my flutes just don't look like the old Taos Pueblo flutes generally. Those flutes looked very, very different. They were very rustic. They were hewn often out of cottonwood, woods that were available to them down there in New Mexico. And so Robert sent me some photos that he had of some of the old Taos Pueblo flutes. These are flutes that were being held by members of the Pueblo, and they look like this. They were just basically a big tube with a big open end on this side, a totem block, and then they had these bands on them like this. So basically what happened was that the people who made these flutes split the wood in half, dug out the material that they didn't need, put sap and binding agents along the edges, and then used straps like this to pull the flute back together and to hold it together. And the sap made it airtight. And that's how they created their flutes in that time. This flute is made out of a solid bore construction. It's actually one solid piece of wood. There's no glue joints in the making of this flute at all. There is the flute body, that's one piece of wood, and there's the totem, and that's the other piece of wood. And that's all there is of wood on this flute, which to me is pretty awesome, to be able to have a single solid piece construction instrument. My other flutes are designed exactly the same way, except they often will have mouthpieces and totems and trim that make them a little bit fancier looking. And of course there's glue joints at those ends, at the ends of the flute. But as far as the split body, we make no split body flutes. At any rate, the flute was very exciting for me to make. I sent one down to Robert, and it was just awesome. It was in the key of low D, and he got it, and he just loved it. It had these, I actually made it with some ties hanging down from it, because that's what the old Taos Pueblo ones had. He didn't like the ties, so he removed them. So on future designs, I didn't use the ties either. I just did the simple banding on it to simulate that beautiful look of the banding that the old Taos Pueblo flutes have. They've got a burned finish. We burn the wood, then we sand and polish it, and then the flute, it has a rough texture to it. It's a texture that we put in by hand carving it, and then sanding, polishing, burning, all of that to create this patinaed look. And then finally it's got a wax over the top of the flute itself. Internal to the flute has our standard finish on the mouthpiece and all the way through the slow air chamber, and also in the windway of the flute. The reason for that is those areas are very wet, and we want to provide a barrier between the moisture and the wood. The reason that we have a mouthpiece with the finish on it is that we want to be able to provide a barrier between your lips and the wood. And so that's the purpose of this finish on the mouthpiece. It's also very comfortable. A lot of people will say to me, how do you play that? That mouthpiece is really weird. Do you stick the whole thing in your mouth? What do you do? And no, you don't. I'll go ahead and just turn sideways a little bit so you can see what I do and how we play this. You simply put the flute to your bottom lip and then tip it up into your upper lip. And that's how you hold it when you play the flute. So very lively flute, very, very fun to play. It's really fun because it is this old look with a new voicing. So you got this great big voice, lots of power and lots of authority in how it sounds, and a great instrument for a busking musician, someone who's playing on some stages that they got to get on and off quick, or they want to have an instrument that if it gets tipped over and banged up a little bit, It's not a big deal. You can drop it in the dirt, pick it up, play it, and it's in just as good a shape as it was before, which is pretty cool. I really dig it. Anyways, that's the Taos Old Style flute. If you have any questions about it, by all means give me a call. Compared to the Cedar Classic flute, by the way, this instrument has more volume, more projection than the Cedar Classic flute has. It's got a little bit tighter sound, and that's kind of the comparison between those two. The Taos Old Style. The next flute we'll talk about is the Cherry Classic. The Cherry Classic is, of course, made out of cherry wood for the flute body. The end caps and mouthpiece are available in dark trim with darker bands and a dark totem, or you can get it with a light trim for the end caps and totems, and then this ring of dark wood in the middle, and of course the two bands of turquoise. So there's two options for how you can get the Cherry Classic. It's this flute sounds very similar to the Taos Old Style. They're similar woods in that they they're American hardwoods. The cherry is a hardwood with kind of a blonde look to it. The Taos Old Style is made out of a blonde wood, typically beech or ash, and the woods are fairly similar in how they project. Their weight and density is very similar. The oil content of the wood is very similar. All of those things make for a similar sort of sound. There's a little bit of an increase in the tonal quality of the Cherry Classic, a little bit more projection than the Taos Old Style, and of course it has a little bit of bling in the turquoise on the flute. Wonderful. Beautiful sound. Of course, by the way, the Cherry Classic has what we call our little bird totem. I've had some people ask me, why is that a little bird? And the reason is that down here on the end of the flute, we have the bird head and the little beak of the bird. It reminds me of the little chickadee birds that I knew as a child. So we call that little bird. The Cherry Classic. The next flute we're going to talk about is the Grenadiers Classic. The Grenadiers Classic is a flute made out of grenadillo. Grenadillo is a golden brown wood that is found in New Mexico. It's down in the Yucatan Peninsula and other places in Mexico. It's very, very hard, very dense. It has a good oil content to it. And so this wood is one of what we call the high-end performing woods. So this is a wood that when you're looking for a real high-end performing wood, a wood that has lots of sound to it, lots and lots of projection, lots of dynamic characteristics, Grenadiers Classic is one of the best woods for that. Of course, there's other woods that we use in custom flutes that are even better in some cases, like Brazilian rosewood, phenomenal woods. But for a classic, the Grenadiers is just awesome. It is just an awesome wood, and one that I highly recommend if you're looking for that high-end performing instrument. If you're looking for a flute that will allow you to project out sound with or without amplification, perhaps you're going to be out in the outdoors, or if you're looking for a flute that will clearly define itself in an ensemble with other instruments, or at like drum circle, if you're in a drum circle, a high-pitched Grenadiers Classic is an awesome flute for that situation. If you're looking for a flute with a really distinct edge to the sound, Grenadiers is perfect for that. It will define itself in ensemble with a guitar or piano or other instruments like that. The Grenadiers Classic is available. The standard configuration is with a dark end caps, mouthpiece, and bass for the totem, and then light rings, a white buffalo, and light rings here. That's our standard configuration. It is available in a light wood configuration, which would be light end cap, mouthpiece, and bass for the totem, and then dark rings with a dark buffalo. So that's another configuration that's available for the Grenadiers Classic. All right. So the Grenadiers Classic, as you can tell, has big sound. It's a flute that you don't want to stop playing. You want to just keep playing, exploring, trying different things with it, just to see what you can do with the sound and where you can go. It's one of the things that I love about the Native American flute in general, is that there's so much that you can do. There's so much sound. Everything I've been playing for the classics has been played in the basic scale. We haven't even approached playing in other scales like major scales. I'm just messing around with the major scale. There's lots of places that you can go with the native flute. There's just about anything that you can want, because you have a full chromatic scale in the flute. So it allows you to go anywhere you want with 15 notes, and then you have all the bending of the notes, the sliding that you can do. It's just a lot of fun. The Grenadiers Classic is one of the instruments that really lets you capture all that's possible with a native flute. The last classic we'll talk about today is the new Maple Burl Classic. The Maple Burl Classic is new to our classic collection. Very excited to introduce it. This is a flute made out of maple burl. It has a reddish brown toned wood for the mouthpiece and end cap. It has a dark ring with turquoise rings as well, and a dark bass. This flute is a fabulous sounding instrument. It has lots of projection, similar to the Grenadiers Classic. Perhaps not quite as much projection, but it has a complexity of overtones that allows you as a player to create incredible emotion out of your instrument. The Grenadiers Classic is the ideal instrument for performing live with or without amplification, in situations where you need to clearly define the note. The Maple Burl Classic is perfect for that situation where you're looking to perhaps do some recording, or you're looking to create the most emotion with your instrument. The Maple Burl Classic is ideal in that situation. It has a carved natural edge to it, and of course the beautiful burl of maple that is just stunning, absolutely stunning to behold. Each instrument, of course, is unique and different, but the general design remains the same. And one thing I'm certain of, when you get your flute, it is going to blow your socks off. And I just love that about the flutes. I love getting the replies from clients who say, "Oh my gosh, this flute is so much better than I thought it was going to be," and so on. It's really a lot of fun. The Maple Burl Classic. The Maple Burl Classic, very beautiful instrument. I hope this helps a little bit to understand the classics, the Woodsounds Classics. If you have any questions about the classics, or any of our custom flutes, or just questions in general, by all means give me a call or shoot me an email. You can reach me at 801-822-1415 or BRENT, that's Brent, at woodsounds.com. Have a wonderful day, and we'll talk to you later.